Hey y'all, I am back with another sponsored video. This one is about Sun opposition Moon, and I'm calling it Life Under the Full Moon. Because when you have Sun opposition Moon in your chart, that means you were born under the full moon. This video has been sponsored by Justin. Thank you, Justin, for sponsoring another video. And Justin wants to know, he's asking, what are the positives and negatives of this aspect? So I'll get into that. How does demonic possession come into play with Scorpio, Sun, Taurus, Moon? So Scorpio rules the demonic, and Taurus is possession. But as an opposition, it's more of demonic influence or demonic oppression, demonic attacks, and where this demonic energy is externalized and projected onto individuals represented by the sun in your case. So the sun in Scorpio. So, for instance, the sun is representing your father, authority figures, and children. So, I'm not saying that your father is a demon in the flesh, but some of his actions could have been more on the demonic end as opposed to the angelic end. Your mother could be representing more so the angelic end or just the light end of this spectrum with you having a Taurus moon. Now, the Scorpio sun can have you embracing the demonic side of life, but the Taurus moon will always bring you back to the light. So, this opposition is not going to allow you to go too far to one end or the other. So, a good example of Sun and Scorpio opposing the Taurus moon is the movie Angel Heart, featuring Lisa Bonet and Mickey Rourke. Now, Lisa Bonet has Sun and Scorpio opposing her Taurus moon. So, this opposition was exemplified in that film. So, if you haven't seen Angel Heart, definitely check it out. Once I get to Lisa Bonet in this video, I will describe that film more in detail so you'll see what I mean. And it's one of my favorite films, by the way. You also asked, what is the darkest manifestation of this aspect? So I'll get into that. You said, what celebrities have this aspect? So I have a list of celebrities for you. And then you said, is Scorpio Taurus axis the worst opposition in astrology? So I'm going to say not in particular. You really can't take any of the oppositions and say, oh, this one is worse, the worst. So it really depends on where the person is on the evolutionary spectrum, because you could have somebody with Sun in Gemini opposing Moon in Sagittarius. And while that opposition can be more manageable typically than the other oppositions, depending on the house placement and where that person is on the evolutionary spectrum, they could do a lot of harm with that opposition, or they could face a lot of harm. So it really depends. You got to take it on a case by case basis. So let's get into the positives. And some of these positives are going to be more on the neutral end, but just keep in mind that basically this is the traits that are not on the negative end. So when you have sun opposition moon, it's like your wants are running counter to your needs. So you could be in a situation, or you could find yourself in situations throughout your life where it's either this or that. Now, the whole key to working this opposition or any of the oppositions in astrology is to try to incorporate both ends of the opposition to a point where you can have a healthy balance between both energies. So if you're able to achieve a healthy balance between the sun and the moon, this is basically akin to having it all in life within reason, that is. So just to be very plain and simplistic, you could say the sun is representing your public life, the moon representing your private life. And if you're able to achieve that balance, you could be successful in both areas. But that's easier said than done a lot of times when you really put this opposition into practice. Also, you could have a day life versus a night life. This is like you could have a day job, but then you could be working on your business at night at home. So, and some people, personalities might be a little different. Their day personality could be different from their night personality. Also, A cocoon-like existence. That's what this opposition can produce, or where the person is in hibernation at certain times throughout their life, and then they emerge in hopefully a better form than what they started out as. But sometimes they will emerge in a form that is worse than what they started off as. Being in front of a mirror often. So that's one of the possible manifestations of this opposition. Admiring oneself in the mirror, experiencing much mirroring. Now, the moon can produce this mirroring effect where there are eerie similarities between people, places, and things, and where you'll start to see these patterns develop. So you could have that phenomenon going on with the opposition. Also, your image, which is represented by the sun, is different from your private life or personality. So that's the more common one. And a lot of times, if somebody has that opposition, they really want to keep their private life separate from their public image. Rationality versus emotionality, with the sun representing rationality and the moon representing emotionality. So there could be times where you are operating more so on the rational end, and then there's other times where you're operating more on the emotional end. So again, the key to successfully navigating any opposition is to try to have a healthy balance between the two ends of that spectrum. A relocation changes your life for the better, creating your own tribe, clan, or culture, or being part of one. And usually it'll be like a tight knit culture, or it'll just be something where it feels like, and I already have it written in here, but I'm going to jump the gun and just say it, where it's like you're creating a world within a world. Or you could basically say culture, which is represented by the moon. So the moon rules culture, also clan, tribe. You know, when somebody's saying, I'm trying to find my tribe. Well, the person that has sun opposition moon, they could most certainly find their tribe. Setting yourself apart from your family, race, or culture. This can also play out as surrogacy. So if someone has this opposition in their chart, and let's say it's a woman and she can't give birth on her own, she might end up getting a surrogate. Or if a child has this opposition, the child could have been born via surrogacy. Now, in need of a sense of belonging, that can often come with sun opposition moon, receiving attention, love, or adoration from the public. So that's definitely a positive. Change in citizenship is possible. Also, self containment, where you're able to operate without any outside interference. And sometimes that could be a good thing, sometimes not so good, because if you're constantly operating in this self-contained framework, you might end up sacrificing creativity in the process because you're not really opening yourself up to other opportunities. Emulation. So someone might come along and emulate who you are, or you might be the one emulating someone else. A woman is an integral part of your purpose. A middle of the road approach is best when you're dealing with this opposition because, like I said, the whole goal is to try to achieve balance. But often that's easier said than done. But if you can try to take a middle of the road approach, that would be best. Great persistence and tenacity, but you have to ask yourself at what cost. And this can kind of go back to the whole self-containment. Like you might be working on a project, burning the candle at both ends. You just got yourself cloistered in a room where you don't have any distractions and you are hard at work. But if you have people in your life, that might be at their expense. So with the oppositions, you can't do things on one end without there being an effect on the other end. So again, the moon can produce that persistence and tenacity, but you got to ask yourself, what is it costing? What are you sacrificing in return? And it's going to be represented by that sun. Needs constant positive reinforcement in order to keep going. full on engagement, but it can sometimes send the wrong message. So, for instance, let's say someone had sun opposition moon and let's say they decide to partner up with someone on a business and then they're all in it. So much in it that they start spending a bunch of time with this person. Let's say it's a male and he partners up with a female on a business venture, and this male is married. Next thing you know, his wife is suspecting that there's something else going on between this man and his business partner because he's spending so much time with her. But he's not cheating. He's actually like working on the business. But again, because he's so engaged in this partnership, he's sending his wife the wrong message. So you got to be careful sometimes with that sun opposition moon. He might even be sending his business partner the wrong message, or he might be interpreting the wrong message from the business partner because, again, they're full on, all in, going out to dinner together to work on the business, all types of stuff. So it could even be where the guy starts wondering, does she want me for more than just a business partner? Imagine connections and circumstances become realized. So the moon is ruling the imagination. So when you got this opposition, your imagination could actually be materializing in the real world through that sun, with the sun representing realization. So imagine connections and circumstances becoming real. That can be a plus, but sometimes it can be a negative. Strong psychic impressions that the person gets about people, and that can help to either keep them safe or to help them to take advantage of opportunities. And like I said before, this sun opposition moon can produce worlds within worlds. So you are in this certain culture, or you are of this certain tribe, or you are of this certain group of people, and it could feel like a family. Getting in the zone. So sun opposition moon will help you to get in the zone. And again, a lot of it is because of that whole self-containment that can come with sun opposition moon and the persistence and tenacity. Alternating between giving and receiving. So the sun is the giver of life and the moon is the receiver. So you might be playing both sides at various times of your life where you're doing more of the giving at one point in your life, and another time in your life you could be more on the receiving end. And either way, it can work out. Just don't be all about where you're just the one always receiving, and don't be all about where you're just the one always being the one to be the giver. You need balance. Alternating between performance and rest. So again, this is where you need balance because you don't want to be performing too much and then you're sacrificing your rest and your comfort and all that. And then you don't want to take too much of a rest because you might start lacking in terms of your performance. Life could be dictated by seasons. So this kind of deals with what I stated previously with the alternating between performance and rest. So there could be times during the year where you are working a lot, you're very productive, and then there could be other times where it's like you don't have to do much. And this is a time for you to really just focus on the private side of life, to focus on your personal needs, and to really just kick back and relax. All right, let's get into the negatives. So, a lot of times with this opposition, it means that mom and dad are at odds. And in a lot of cases, it can mean that mom and dad, they didn't stay together. But even if they did stay together, they still could be at odds. They could live very separate lives. A lot of times with sun opposition moon, if both of your parents are still in your life, you might feel like you are caught in the middle and you might actually pick a side, and that side could actually switch at times. So, but for the most part, you more than likely are going to be siding with one parent over the other. Mom and dad are married but live very separate lives. They might even sleep in separate rooms as well. Lack of closeness with father is possible. Lacking a sense of purpose due to family or mother's influence. Not living according to your purpose due to fear of being taken out of your comfort zone, perhaps. Copying others, lacking originality is possible. Wants are not in harmony with needs. And this can really be problematic if you're focusing too much on your wants. Challenges with being fully independent or living on your own. Leaving home at an early age is possible. Challenge with conception or pregnancy. A child does not live at home with you. Being at odds with your child. But that can always change. So with sun opposition moon, you could be estranged from one of your children, or your child just may not be dealing with you like that up close and personal, but that can always change. You can turn things around with the opposition. Challenges with co-parenting. A house becomes a burden or pain in the ass. Being forced out of your living situation. Being away from home a lot. Being too influenced by family or mother. I think I had already said that. Serious challenges with relating to or getting close to women. A woman is pulling your strings. A woman contributes to your downfall. Just keep in mind that sun opposition moon is just showing that it's hard to create harmony between the sexes a lot of times. It doesn't make it impossible, but there could often be this challenge between the sexes. A man is the cause of your emotional distress. Issues with privacy. Being in a dark corridor of subjectivity or myopia, where you only see things from your personal perspective or your personal experiences. Getting caught up in the world of imagination. Going up against a population, race, or nation. Feeling apart from your race, culture, or family. Lacking a sense of wholeness or completeness. And this can translate into health issues. So, for instance, the moon rules the stomach. So, a person with sun opposition moon, they could have stomach problems. Maybe they have irritable bowel syndrome, or maybe they have an ulcer. And the stomach problems could be so severe that it takes away from the quality of one's life. And that's represented by the sun. Like the sun is dealing with your ability to thrive, your ability to enjoy life, your ability to even be happy. So if you got serious problems going on with your stomach, that can make it hard for that sun to do what it wants. And it can make it hard for you to just feel like you're thriving. It can make it hard for you to enjoy life. Also, issues with food, eating, and appetite for some people that have sun opposition moon. Having a me against the world approach, racial standoffs, being locked out or barred from entry. In some cases, you could say being blackballed. A threat to your security. Risk versus security, with the sun representing risk and security representing the moon. Emotions get the best of you. That's if you are putting all your energy into that moon, or you're existing more so on the moon end. Past comes back to haunt you. Mind is incongruent with the heart. Ghosting. So you could be the one doing the ghosting, or somebody in your life could be ghosting you. Seems like they fell off the face of the earth. You don't know what happened to them. And then next thing you know, they pop up a few weeks or a few months later, and you're like, where the hell have you been? Being holed up in a house or a room is another possible manifestation of sun opposition moon. And let's get into the darkest manifestation. The sun opposition moon is by far not one of the worst aspects. It can be rather challenging, but usually with age, the older you get, the more you'll be able to manage that opposition effectively. But though you will usually always be something, you could either say it's a threat that you're facing, or just some form of adversarial energy. Now, being against humanity or certain races, populations, nations, that is one of the darkest manifestations of this opposition. So a person could be like a stone cold racist or a stone cold even like a misanthrope where they just do not like humanity. Being a traitor, being a sexist. Your home becomes a death trap. Giving oneself totally over to the lunacy of the moon. This is the darkest part right here because the moon doesn't make any sense. The moon doesn't have logic. So I'm calling this the werewolf syndrome as well. So if you give yourself totally over to the moon, where you are lacking rationality, you're liable to do anything. And it may not make sense to anybody but yourself, but you'll do it because you're basically giving all the power to that moon. So you got to be careful with this opposition if you're leaning too much towards that moon. See, that whole mythology of the werewolf and where the man turns into a wolf when the full moon is out. Yeah, because that full moon is representing where emotions are like free flowing, no limits to that emotional expression. It's just an outpouring of emotion. And that typically is not a good thing. Psycho. So, if you ever seen the movie Psycho, Sun opposition Moon is basically representing the darkest manifestation. Like that movie is basically representing the darkest manifestation of Sun opposition Moon. So I'm calling this the Norman Bates syndrome. Norman Bates was the crazy psycho man who was basically so influenced by his mother that after she died, he was still hearing her voice and he was still basically being tormented by her. So I took this from Wikipedia about the movie Psycho because this describes basically what his issue was. And this is so Sun opposition Moon in terms of the darkest manifestation. It says at the police station, a psychiatrist explains that Norman killed his mother and her lover 10 years prior out of jealousy. Unable to bear the guilt, he mummified his mother's corpse and treated it as if she were still alive. He recreated his mother as an alternate personality, as jealous and possessive towards Norman as he felt about his mother. Whenever Norman is attracted to a woman, mother takes over. Under the mother personality, Norman killed two women before he killed Marion and Abergast. The psychiatrist concludes that mother has now submerged Norman's personality. So that's basically representing that Sun opposition Moon in Norman Bates' life. So yeah, I would say yeah, he might have very well, if he was a real person, he very well could have had Sun opposition Moon. So let's get into your opposition in particular, Justin. So you got Sun in Scorpio opposing Moon in Taurus. So this is representing your mother and father being at odds. I can't remember if you told me that they got a divorce, but I remember you were telling me that your mom is very different than your mother, and you always took more of a liking to your mother. You were always closer to your mother, and that your dad was a cop. So just your dad being a cop alone, that just shows he's representing more of the dark side in your life. So the sun representing your father, Scorpio, that's where controlling, power seeking, being a cop. And then your mom is on the light side with her represented by the moon in Taurus. Taurus is peace and security. So lacking a close relationship with dad. Now, you never gave me an update on how your situation is with your dad now, but it still may not be close. Dad being preoccupied with outside interests at your expense. Challenge with living on your own due to cost of housing. So that's a possibility. I remember you were telling me you are obsessed with good sense. That's that opposition all day. Like you said, you would go into like the stores and you would smell all like the spray fragrances and stuff like that, and that you were obsessed with your mother's smell, like when she would put on perfume or the smell of her hair. So that's very sun opposition moon, with that moon in Taurus representing the scents, the lovely smells, and then that Sun in Scorpio being the opposition. Working as a server in a restaurant slash banquet hall. So I remember you were telling me that you were working in a restaurant or it was like a banquet hall or something. It sounded like it was rather fancy, but that opposition is dealing with that as well, with that moon in Taurus representing the restaurant and the sun in Scorpio representing you being the server working in a high pressure environment. I always say Scorpio is great for working in the restaurant industry because the restaurant industry usually is high pressure and Scorpio knows how to handle that. Issues with self-esteem stemming from your father, perhaps. Throat infections, getting a lump in your throat. If you know you want to say something, but you might have a hard time getting what you want to say off your chest, and you might develop a lump in your throat as a result. Let me know if that's the case. Living on the light side is counteracted with intrigue of the dark side. And you are, very much intrigued with the dark side. Eating to bulk up, protein shakes. So, with you being a bodybuilder, I'm sure you have to eat to bulk up. And this opposition can play out as binge eating, actually. And that moon in Taurus could also represent the protein shakes that you're drinking to bulk up. Being an aesthetic bodybuilder with the moon in Taurus representing aesthetics, Scorpio representing the bodybuilder. Also, a female spiritual advisor who helps you to find your purpose. That would be yours truly. So I'm showing up in this opposition in your chart as well, which will again show you that oppositions aren't always bad. It can actually deal with somebody that comes into your life that helps to pull you up or at least helps you to find your purpose. And that's why I'm in your life. So yes, I'm the female spiritual advisor who helps you to find your purpose. So Taurus is the advisor, the moon is representing the female, and then that sun in Scorpio is representing your purpose. Also, this is you sponsoring the astrology videos like this one. So this opposition can also play out as a long distance relationship with a woman, especially with your moon being in the ninth house. Being with a sugar mama is possible as well. Also, you could end up sponsoring a foreign woman so she can obtain citizenship at some point. All right, so let's get into the celebrities that have Sun opposition moon, starting with Taylor Swift, who is a Sagittarius. She has Sun in Sagittarius in her first house, opposing her moon in Gemini in the seventh. So she's known for her biographical songwriting, artistic reinventions, and cultural impact. Swift is a leading figure in popular music and the subject of widespread public interest. So that cultural impact in particular is very much dealing with that opposition, but also the widespread public interest and the biographical songwriting, which is represented by that moon in Gemini alone. Now, according to V Magazine's Greg Krellenstein, she possesses a rare gift of turning a stadium spectacle into an intimate setting, irrespective of whether she is plucking a guitar or leading an army of dancers. She dominates cultural conversations, which has led publications to describe her as a cultural vitality or zeitgeist. That's the epitome of this opposition. Her music, life, and public image are points of attention in the global celebrity culture. Very much dealing with that opposition, especially when they talk about global, which is Sagittarius. Swift spent her early years on a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania that her father had purchased from one of his clients. And she spent her summers at her family's vacation home in Stone Harbor, New Jersey. So, spending time between homes, one being a vacation home, Sagittarius rules vacations. That moon in Gemini is representing the multiple homes. She is a Christian and attended preschool and kindergarten at Montessori school run by Bernardine Sisters of St. Francis. That's very Sun opposition moon as well. Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson, Sun in Virgo in the sixth, opposing moon in Pisces in the second. So Papa Joe, his father, was very different than his mother, Catherine. And Michael tended to side more with his mother. His mother brought him comfort. So Michael received solace and refuge in his mother in response to his father's highly critical and fault-finding nature. Also, Michael's challenges with women. He got married to Lisa Marie Presley, and then he had quote unquote those children with that other chick. And then he briefly dated Brooke Shields and Stephanie Mills, but he never really seemed like he could be like have that close relationship, that close intimate relationship with women. Challenges with children. Like when he was dangling that child off of the balcony with the blanket over his head. And wasn't that child called Blanket? Catherine, Princess of Wales. So she's a Capricorn, Sun in the fifth house, opposing her moon in Cancer in the 11th. So some of these facts are dealing with this opposition. Catherine's relationship with the media has been closely scrutinized, particularly regarding her efforts to maintain privacy amidst significant media attention and public interest. So one of the things I mentioned about Sun opposition moon is issues with privacy, and especially with her moon being in Cancer, that is a major theme in her life. So, Capricorn, Cancer opposition, that is like public life versus private life, plain and simple. So, you'll see a lot of issues that come up dealing with her private life. Kensington Palace announced in January 2024 that Catherine had undergone a planned abdominal surgery for an undisclosed medical condition at the London clinic. She postponed all of her public engagements and duties through March that year. The subsequent speculation about her absence from public view prompted various conspiracy theories about her health and garnered extensive media attention. The speculation largely started after William withdrew from the Thanksgiving service of his godfather, Constantine II of Greece, where he was slated to speak, citing an undisclosed personal matter. Her medical leave from public engagements was subsequently extended. She made her first public appearance after her cancer diagnosis at the 2024 Trooping the Color in June, having mentioned in a letter released by Kensington Palace the previous day that she was still undergoing treatment for cancer. Even the fact that she has cancer, she got moon in Cancer, because when you hear the word cancer come up, the person, if cancer is a major theme in the person's life, they could actually have a planet in Cancer or be a Cancer rising, because sometimes these things play out literally. Demi Moore. So Demi Moore has Sun in Scorpio in the eighth, opposing her moon in Taurus. Now, the main thing about Demi Moore with this opposition is that Moore and her daughters were estranged for 3 years when the striptease stunner relapsed with substance abuse, but has since reconciled. So remember, I said not being close to one of your children or your child not living with you or there be estrangement, but I said it can be turned around at some point. Yes. So Demi Moore is the perfect example of that. Cardi B. Cardi B has Sun in Libra in the seventh, opposing Moon in Aries in the first. So this is representing her always at odds with her husband, Offset. Like, is he her ex now? Did they officially get a divorce? I don't know. Y'all tell me. Also, this explains why she was on the treadmill shortly after giving birth. Because with this opposition, she cares very much about what people think and say about her. And with that moon in Aries, she couldn't wait until she totally healed up. She was impatient. She had to get up on that treadmill. And that moon in Aries can make her want to stay active, just period. Suing a woman, Tasha K in particular. So that whole lawsuit involving Tasha K, in this case, Tasha K is represented by that Aries moon. Tina Turner. So Tina Turner has Sun in Sagittarius in the fourth, opposing moon in Gemini in the 10th, being at odds with husband Ike Turner, adopting Ike's sons after they married. Ike also adopted her first son. So also she had a change in citizenship, which is so Sun opposition moon. And this is also her chanting Buddhist mantras. And I think at one point, I don't think her son was dealing with her, and I think he sided with Ike. Y'all let me know about that, because that could deal with that opposition as well. Also, not wanting nothing to do with her early beginnings, becoming uppity. Now, I've read in a few places that Tina Turner wasn't very nice when dealing with people, especially people that she deemed to be beneath her. And especially if somebody from her past came back into her life and was like, "Hey, Tina, what's up? Hey, anime," she would flip. Like, she was not having it. She was like, "Get the hell away from me. That is not my life no more." All that. Like, she wanted to rise above that early part of her life, which is the epitome of this opposition. She didn't want to be around the common folk no more. And that moon in Gemini represents the common folk. Paul Walker. So Paul Walker had Sun in Virgo in his first, opposing Moon in Pisces in the seventh. Walker was born on September 12th, 1973 in Glendale, California. His mother Cheryl was a fashion model, that's the Moon in Pisces, and his father Paul William Walker was a sewer contractor and former amateur boxer, that's Virgo with him being a boxer, who was also a two-time Golden Globes champion. He and Rebecca Sotoros, a childhood friend with whom he had an on and off again relationship, had a daughter named Meadow Rain Walker. Meadow lived with her mother in Hawaii for 13 years and in 2011 moved to California to live with Walker. So, him being separated from his daughter for 13 years, that's Sun opposition Moon, especially with that Moon in Pisces representing Hawaii, because Pisces rules islands and tropical areas. Walker founded the humanitarian aid nonprofit charity Reach Out Worldwide with financial advisor Roger Rhodes in response to the 2010 Haiti earthquake. He traveled to a number of disaster stricken areas to supply aid until his death. So that's dealing with him taking part in the whole charity, nonprofit, all that, with Moon and Pisces representing nonprofit, but also Haiti. Sun in Virgo representing his desire to help. Now, Walker had an interest in marine biology and joined the board of directors of the Billfish Foundation in 2006. Remember, I said full engagement? That's basically what these two up here are representing, the whole humanitarian aid nonprofit and also him joining this whole marine biology project. So he joined the board of directors of the Bill Fish Foundation in 2006. He fulfilled a lifelong dream by starring in the National Geographic Channel series Expedition Great White, retroactively retitled Sharkman, which premiered in June 2010. So him being interested in marine biology is that Moon in Pisces, and him actually working on this project is that Sun in Virgo being incorporated with that Moon in Pisces. And again, he was all in. And then I have to question if his death was a sacrifice, because that Pisces moon can represent that he was someone's sacrifice, especially with it being in the seventh. He died in a horrible car accident. Him and a friend was driving and lost control of the sports car. And next thing you know, the car burst in flames and both of them died. Terrible. Lenny Kravitz. So Lenny Kravitz has Sun in Gemini in the fifth, opposing Moon in Sagittarius in the 12th. So he wasn't close to his father, especially as he got older and started to really find out that his father wasn't all that. Living in a remote jungle with horses. I saw this, I think it was an Architectural Digest episode with Lenny Kravitz, and he was just showing his home and he was riding his horses and stuff. So, with that Moon in Sagittarius, that's like living on a big ranch, wide open spaces. And then with Sagittarius ruling horses, that's like having property where there's horses on there as well. Also, him just living far out, couldn't give all of himself to Lisa Bonet. And that's representing that. With that Moon in Sagittarius, that's like representing a woman that is expecting to have all of you. But with his Sun in Gemini, he was quite fragmented when he was married to Lisa Bonet, and that's why he was cheating. And Lisa Bonet has Sun opposition Moon as well. So she has Sun in Scorpio in the fifth, opposing Moon in Taurus in the 11th. So acting in the Angel Heart movie went against family values that were promoted on the Cosby Show. So Bill Cosby had a big problem with her being in that movie Angel Heart, and he was being a straight up hypocrite. But anyway, I'm so glad that she did that film, because I think she just did a killer job playing Epiphany Proudfoot. And basically, I'm not going to give away the whole like movie or whatever, but I love this movie because it deals with the occult. It deals with like voodoo and, magic and spell work and all that type of stuff, and also selling your soul for fame. So basically, that's what this movie is about. And this guy is hired to find this singer who has sold his soul because the devil wants his soul. He wants to collect his soul after he allowed him to get famous and all of that. But basically, to make the long story short, Lisa Bonet's sun in Scorpio opposing her moon in Taurus is exemplified in that movie, with Johnny Favorite being represented by sun in Scorpio and Lisa Bonet's mother, um, what was her name? Evangeline Proudfoot, that was her mother, being represented by that moon in Taurus. There's even a scene in the movie where Lisa Bonet's character, Epiphany, is setting food out at her mother's grave. She's basically honoring her mother's life and feeding her, in the spiritual sense by setting the bread down and stuff. And that moon in Taurus is representing the food offering. Opposition Sun and Scorpio, food offering for the dead. And then again, that opposition can also just point to the issue she had with Lenny Kravitz when she was married to him. And the same opposition is playing out with her marriage to Jason Momoa. Now, I'm not saying Jason Momoa is being unfaithful to her or cheating, but I wouldn't write it. I mean, I wouldn't say he's not. Like, that is possible. But this can also point to issues with joint financial management as well between them. Jaden Smith. So Jaden has Sun in Cancer opposing his moon in Capricorn. His Sun is in the eighth, moon in the second. So parents live separate lives despite being married. So remember I said that was a manifestation of this opposition. Also, moving out of his parents' home at an early age. So he became emancipated, I think when he was like 15, and he was able to live away from his parents, but he ended up moving back in, I think. The gender bending stunts that he be pulling, especially with that Cancer energy, trapped in a dark corridor of his own subjectivity. So it's like he lives in his own little world of subjectivity, and sometimes people might look at him like, what is this boy's problem? But it might make sense to him. And the time when he looked very skinny, gaunt, wasn't eating, and Will had to intervene and tell the boy to start eating. So him basically starving himself, that's represented by this opposition as well. That's the time when the moon took over. So you see what I mean? Like you can't allow that moon to have all the power with this opposition, because then you'll end up like Jaden Smith, like when he was looking all gaunt and skinny because he wasn't eating. And that moon in Capricorn can deal with starvation. It can deal with fasting, but if you take it too far, next thing you know, you're starving yourself like how he was. Now, I would think that was a symptom of depression, because the moon in Capricorn can play out as depression. Trust me, I know, because I got a Capricorn moon. So, yeah. And then just think about the influence his family has over him, where he probably feels like he really can't express himself as his own individual a lot because he's always going to be known as Will and Jada's son. Judy Garland. So Judy had Sun in Gemini in the 12th house, opposing Moon in Sagittarius in the 6th. Father and mother lived very separate lives, even though they were married. Father was actually gay. Mother was overbearing to the point where Judy wasn't allowed to think or speak for herself. Challenges with raising children. So she ended up in a custody battle with her husband, and he ended up getting custody of two of her children, and that was very painful for her to deal with. Steven Seagal, he's an interesting character, actor. He has Sun in Aries in the ninth, opposing Moon in Libra in the third. So this opposition has definitely like showed up in his life in a number of ways, such as playing different roles where he fights his opponents. People feeling some type of way about his ridiculous lace front wigs. I mean, look at that. That's ridiculous. But he's always going to wear that because he cares about what other people think, but obviously not enough to the point where he's gonna put that ridiculous wig on. Like, just be bald, dude. But he's living in his own world of subjectivity, so he thinks it looks good, so he gonna wear it. Now, according to Seagal's first wife, Miyako Fujitani, I met Steven in California in the fall of 1974. He followed me back to Japan in October. We got married in December 1974. So his son being in the ninth house, opposing that moon in Libra, that's him following this woman back to Japan. Ninth house being long distance travel. In the early 1980s, Seagal had aspirations to return to America and become a movie star. Fujitani then scrimped and saved for years, even denying herself and her children necessities to help pay his way home. Remember, I said a woman could be very influential in you living according to your purpose. According to Fujitani, then he availed himself of her savings and heed off. Seagal holds citizenships in 3 countries: the United States, Serbia, and Russia. Born in the United States, he possesses just solely U.S. citizenship. He was granted Serbian citizenship on January 11, 2016, following several visits to the country, and he has been asked to teach Aikido to Serbian special forces. Seagal is married to Mongolian Erdinutua Baksu. They have one son together. From an early age, El trained as a dancer at the Children's Palace in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. So him getting with a woman that's a dancer, that's very Moon in Libra. After her graduation from high school and the Children's Palace, she pursued a career as a professional dancer. She won a number of dancing contests and was considered the top female dancer in Mongolia, excelling at ballroom dancing in particular. Elle first met Seagal in 2001 when she worked as his interpreter during his visit to Mongolia. So him getting with the foreign women, that's very much dealing with this opposition, as well as him getting with a woman that was a dancer, this different citizenships that he was able to get. It's all dealing with this opposition. So Steven Seagal has a number of lawsuits that's pertaining to this opposition because that moon is in Libra. Now, in May 1991, Warner Brothers employees Ray Malone, Nicole Sellinger, and Christine Keeve accused Seagal of sexual harassment. In return for remaining silent, Malone and another woman received around $50,000 each in an out of court settlement. Around the same time, at least 4 actresses said that Seagal had made sexual advances, typically during late night casting sessions. And he does seem like he would be sexist, which is one of the darker manifestations of that opposition. In another incident, Jenny McCarthy said that Seagal asked her to undress during an audition for Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. In 1995, Seagal was charged with employment discrimination, sexual harassment, and breach of contract. Cheryl Suman filed a case against Seagal, accusing him of threatening and beating her during the filming of On Deadly Ground. In August 1995, Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Hiroshi Fujisaki dismissed the case, calling the claims repetitive and unintelligible. On April 12, 2010, 23-year-old Caden Gwynn filed a lawsuit against Seagal in a Los Angeles County Superior Court, requesting more than $1 million in damages. In her suit, Gwynn alleged Seagal engaged in sexual harassment, the illegal trafficking of females for sex, I believe that, with his son being in the ninth, failure to prevent sexual harassment, and wrongful termination. Seagal denied the allegations, but his reality show, Steven Seagal Lawman, was suspended while his attorneys resolved the case. On July 14, 2010, 3 months after Gwen filed her suit, she withdrew her claim without explanation. On August 30th, 2011, Jesus Sanchez Yulovera filed a lawsuit against Seagal over his part in a Maricopa County police raid with heavy weapons, notably including an Army surplus tank, and then of Gelovera's residence for suspicion of cockfighting. The incident was taped for Seagal's A&E reality show Steven Seagal Lawman. So that dude is seeking $100,000 in damages caused during the raid and a letter of apology That's so Moon and Libra having to apologize. Officially, that's Moon and Libra in the third house to his children for the death of their family pet. All right. And then there's more as well. Like in 2017, actress Portia de Rossi accused Seagal of sexual harassing her during a movie audition. DeRossi alleged that during an audition in Seagal's office, he told her how important it was to have chemistry off screen before unzipping his pants. On an April 18th appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Katherine Hagel alleged on the final day of shooting for Under Siege 2 that Seagal told her that he had girlfriends the same age as the 16-year-old Hagel. Kimmel responded by displaying a photo from the film's promotional tour showing Seagal's hand on Hagel's chest while they posed for a photo. On November 9th, 2017, Dutch model Fabiola Dodds or Dodds posted a statement on her Instagram account stating that she had also been sexually assaulted by Seagal years earlier. On January 15, 2018, actress Rachel Grant publicly accused Seagal of sexually assaulting her in 2002 during pre-production on his directed-video film Out for a Kill, stating that she lost her job on the film after the incident. In February 2018, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office acknowledged that it was reviewing a potential sex abuse case involving Seagal. In March 2018, Regina Simmons publicly claimed that in 1993, when she was 18, Seagal raped her at his home when she arrived for what she thought was a wrap party for a movie on deadly ground. In September 2018, Los Angeles prosecutors refused to charge the actor based on Regina Simmons' accusations due to California's statute of limitations. 2 months later, the case involving the actress Rachel Grant was dismissed for the same reasons. So also it says Seagal became embroiled in a legal case involving film producer Julius R. Nasso after Nasso attempted to extort Seagal. Nasso produced seven of Seagal's films, beginning with Marked for Death. The two became best friends, according to Seagal. Their relationship became strained, however, and their partnership ended in 2000. So this opposition just shows that, like, he's always on the prowl for women. He's a sexist. He don't know how to restrain himself because he basically, that's where it's like, okay, he's more on that Aries sun end when dealing with women. So he's lacking self-control. He's being impulsive. He's being pushy. He's being arrogant. Also, there's been conflicts with stuntmen too. So I'm not going to get into all of that for lack of time. Asia Argento, Sun in Virgo, opposing Moon in Pisces. Now, she's an actress, and her father is a famous director, Dario Argento. And she was the one that was in a relationship with Anthony Bourdain before he died. So, being part of father's subjective filmmaking world, that's very much this opposition. And the magical rituals that she performs or that she's involved with, that she posts on Instagram, her tragic relationship with Anthony Bourdain. Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers has Sun in Gemini opposing Moon in Sagittarius. At the age of 8, she created her first alter ego, J. Sandra Meredith. So her having this alter ego, especially that she's using for comedy, is dealing with this opposition, especially with her being a Gemini. Rivers matriculated at Connecticut College. It was a family legacy to attend the institution as her sister had done. So remember, I said with this opposition, you could be very influenced by your family. So that's an example of that. Moon in Sagittarius is representing a college that her family has attended, so she feels it necessary to attend to. With this opposition, she might have wanted to go somewhere else, though. Now, Rivers has stated in interviews that she was overweight throughout her childhood, adolescence, and in college, and that it had a profound impact on her body image, which she struggled with throughout her life. So that opposition is dealing with that. After 2 years, she transferred to Barnard College, where she graduated in 1954 with a BA in English literature and anthropology. So the fact that she had a dual major is dealing with this opposition as well, with that Gemini, making it hard for her to just choose one. During her 55-year career as a comedian, her tough talking style of satirical humor was both praised and criticized as truthful yet too personal, too gossipy, and very often abrasive. Nonetheless, with her ability to tell it like it is, she became a pioneer of contemporary stand up comedy. Commenting about her style, she told biographer Gerald Nachman, "Maybe I started it. We're a very gossipy culture. All we want to know now is private lives." That's that sun opposition moon all day. However, her style of humor, which often relied on making jokes about her own life and satirizing the lives of celebrities and public figures, was sometimes criticized as insensitive. Her jokes about Elizabeth Taylor and Adele's weight, for instance, were often commented on, although Rivers would never apologize for her humor. In her book Bouncing Back, Rivers described how she developed bulimia nervosa after Rosenberg's 1987 suicide and the subsequent death of her psychologist, with whom she had developed a close friendship of an AIDS-related illness. Additionally, Rivers' relationship with her daughter had been strained at the time, as Melissa blamed her for her father's death. So the issues with bulimia is seen through that sun opposition moon, but there's going to be other aspects in her chart that also show that bulimia, but also the estrangement from her daughter. Even though they ended up becoming close again before Joan died, they still spent some time apart because the daughter, Melissa Rivers, she accused Joan of basically her father's suicide. Janelle Monáe. So Janelle Monáe has her sun conjoined to Uranus in Sagittarius, opposing Moon in Gemini. We have to consider that sun conjunct Uranus because that Uranus is going to come into play with a lot of these stories about that opposition. And she's definitely a Uranian. Now, her mother, Janet, worked as a janitor and a hotel maid. Her father, Michael Robinson Summers, was a truck driver. Monet's parents separated when Monet was a toddler, and her mother later married a postal worker. Monet has a younger sister, Kimmy, from her mother's marriage. So the fact that the father was a truck driver is dealing with this opposition, with that moon representing him basically living on the road a lot of times. And then the fact that the mother got with a postal worker is represented by that moon in Gemini alone. And then her having the younger sister through her stepfather is represented by this opposition. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, which Monet bought 2 copies of with her first check, was another source of inspiration. So remember, I said a woman could be a major influence in your life in terms of your purpose. Lauryn Hill is a Gemini, so that's being represented by her moon in Gemini, opposing that sun and Uranus in Sag. She performed songs from the album on Juneteenth talent shows, winning 3 years in a row. After a year and a half, Monet dropped out of the academy and relocated to Atlanta. Enrolling at Georgia Perimeter College, she began writing her own music and performing around the campus. In 2003, Monet self-released a demo album titled The Audition, which she sold out of the trunk of her Mitsubishi Galant. That is so sun opposition moon. That moon in Gemini, basically dealing with her having that car, and then the selling is the sun and promoting. Now, during this period, she worked at an Office Depot, but was fired for answering a fan's email using a company computer. An accident that inspired the song Letting Go, which in turn attracted the attention of Big Boy. Now, that's dealing with that opposition as well. Monet has said she has an alter ego from the year 2719 named Cindy Mayweather. You see the 2 alter ego cases, both of them had Gemini on one end of the opposition. With Joan Rivers, she has Sun in Gemini. With Janelle Monáe, she has Moon in Gemini. The common denominator is Gemini, which is bringing that alter ego to the surface. Now, Monet's roots in Kansas City, Kansas, where she was born and raised, are evident in her lyrics and style. According to Carrie Batan's Pitchfork feature on Monet, the song Ghetto Woman directly addresses Monet's working class KC, Kansas City, Kansas mother, as well as the portrayal of working class black women in U.S. culture, with the line Carry On, Ghetto Woman. Even when the news portrays you less than you could be, Monet also told the London Evening Standard she has internalized her KCKS roots by wearing the working class uniform of her parents and expressing concern that she cannot let her community down. Her being very concerned about that community, that's Moon and Gemini. Also, her roots, Moon and Gemini. On the album, The Arch Android, especially in songs like Cold War or Baba Baya, Monet relates the dystopian cityscapes depicted in Metropolis to the boarded up projects of poverty racked Kansas. Kansas City, therefore, not only represents Monet's physical roots within her hometown, but also serves as an important influence on the lyrics and science fictional setting. So that was a mouthful. That is represented by the opposition as well. Brandy Norwood. So Brandy has Sun in Aquarius in the 12th, opposing Moon and Leo in the 6th. She put out an album called Full Moon. This was Norwood's third studio album, was released in February 2002. So this is literal. Like, she was born under the full moon and she put out an album called Full Moon. And the song, that was a song called Full Moon from that album. I love that song. Now, since the start of her career, Brandy has named Whitney Houston as her most prominent music and entertainment influence. Early in her career, she would often describe Houston as her idol, creating her voice, music, and performances as critical to her, both personally and professionally. In a 2014 interview, Brandy stated that as a professional musician, I would say that Whitney Houston is the greatest voice of all time. So her being greatly influenced by Whitney Houston, that's that Moon and Leo. Whitney was a Leo. She elaborates saying she was always the idea for me. I wanted to be like her, sing like her. So Brandy doing that emulation and do everything she was doing. Beginning in the late 1990s, Houston would evolve as a personal friend and mentor to Brandy, with Houston nicknaming herself as Norwood's godmother. In 2004, Smith revealed that the pair had never legally wed. She talking about her child's father, but that they had pretended to marry to preserve Norwood's public image. Norwood responded that she regarded her relationship with Smith as a spiritual union and true commitment to each other, though she later confirmed Smith's statement and justified her actions with the pressure of having to be a role model. So basically, she had lied when she was pregnant that her and her man were married, that they got secretly married, but then it came out that they were never married, and she was just trying to portray herself to be a little good girl, trying to protect her image and all that. So that's very much dealing with Sun opposition Moon as well. Eartha Kitt. So Eartha Kitt, old school actress, had Sun in Capricorn in the second house, opposing her Moon in Cancer in the eighth. So this deals with the issues with her racial background. Basically, her mother was reportedly or allegedly sexually assaulted by a white man, and she ended up becoming pregnant. Discrimination that she faced. And it says here, Eartha's mother soon went to live with a black man who refused to accept Eartha because of her relatively pale complexion. So more issues concerning race. On January 18th, 1968, during Lyndon B. Johnson's administration, Kitt encountered a substantial professional setback after she made anti-war statements during a White House luncheon. Kitt was asked by First Lady Bird Johnson about the Vietnam War. She replied, "You send the best of this country off to be shot and maimed. No wonder the kids rebel and take part. During a question and answer session, Kit stated, "The children of America are not rebelling for no reason. They are not hippies for no reason at all. We don't have what we have on Sunset Boulevard for no reason. They are rebelling against something. There are so many things burning the people of this country, particularly mothers. They feel they are going to raise sons, and I know what it's like. And you have children of your own, Mrs. Johnson. We raise children and send them to war." Kit's remarks reportedly caused Mrs. Johnson to burst into tears. It is widely believed that Kit's career in the United States was ended following her comments about the Vietnam War, after which she was branded a sadistic nymphomaniac by the CIA. So her basically being at the White House luncheon and Lady Bird Johnson, who broke down in tears, is represented by that moon in Cancer in the 8th. A CIA dossier about Kit was discovered by Seymour Hersh in 1975. Hersh published an article about the dossier in the New York Times. The dossier contained comments about Kit's sex life and family history, along with negative opinions of her that were held by former colleagues. Kit's response to the dossier was to say, "I don't understand what this is about. I think it's disgusting." Following the incident, Kit devoted her energies to performances in Europe and Asia. So going to another country, very much dealing with this opposition, her privacy being violated, very much dealing with this opposition, especially with that moon being in Cancer. LL Cool J. Oh, also going back, that CIA involvement is dealing with that 8th house, moon in Cancer opposing the sun in Capricorn. Basically, the CIA investigating her background and private life and all that. LL Cool J. So he has Sun in Capricorn in the 5th, opposing Moon in Cancer in the 11th. So this is representing how his public image is starkly different from his private home life. And his father was so much at odds with his mother that he tried to kill her. So it says that his father shot his mother and grandfather, nearly killing them both. So parents being at odds, this is in the worst way with this opposition. Another person that had this opposition was Phil Spector, and he ended up killing a woman. So Phil Spector, you could research his story. He's a perfect example of the darkest manifestation of this opposition. And LL Cool J, his experience with his parents is one of the darkest manifestations as well. Tori Spelling. So Tori is a sun in Taurus in the 3rd house, opposing moon in Scorpio in the 9th. So father and mother, very different. Mother taking father's money and not giving Tori much. So it says here, Spelling anticipated a sizable inheritance from her father's $500 million estate after his death in 2006. The estate was to be divided primarily between Spelling, her brother Randy, and their mother Candy. Candy Spelling was the estate executor, but she and Tori Spelling were estranged. Tori and Randy Spelling each inherited $800,000, although Randy was not estranged from Candy. Candy established a $10 million trust fund for Tori's eldest child. So there's been this tension between Tori and Candy Spelling, mainly over money. But then I read something dealing with what Tori admitted, and I was like, now I can kind of understand why her mother wasn't trying to give her a bunch of money. So it says in her 6th book, Spelling It Like It Is, Spelling admitted to having financial troubles due to the cancellation of her reality series, Poor Real Estate Decisions, and a difficult 4th pregnancy, during which she was hospitalized for 10 weeks. So remember I said challenges with pregnancy, sun opposition moon, then issues with real estate as well. A house can become a burden with sun opposition moon. It says, in explanation, Spelling said, as my real estate obsession persists, it's starting to look more compulsive. Moving is expensive, and I've put us in a precarious financial situation. So she's basically admitting that she has financial problems because she's obsessed with real estate. And that's the epitome of the sun in Taurus opposing that moon in Scorpio. That moon in Scorpio is representing her obsession with real estate, and the opposition with the sun in Taurus is representing how that is causing financial troubles. On and off again with husband Dean McDermott until finally divorcing. So this opposition, especially because it's Scorpio Taurus, can produce that on and off again relationship. It can make it very hard to permanently separate until both parties have had enough. Tanya Harding, remember her? Ice skater? So Tanya Harding has Sun in Scorpio. Should we be surprised considering what happened with the whole Nancy Kerrigan assault? So Sun in Scorpio on the 5th, opposing Moon in Taurus in the 11th. Basically, this is showing she was jealous of Nancy Kerrigan. And where the blame for the attack on Nancy was placed on her husband, represented by that Sun in Scorpio. In January 1994, Harding became embroiled in controversy when her ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, orchestrated an attack on her fellow U.S. skating rival Nancy Kerrigan. On March 16, 1994, Harding accepted a plea bargain in which she pled guilty to conspiracy to hinder prosecution. As a result of her involvement in the aftermath of the assault, the United States Figure Skating Association banned her for life on June 30th, 1994. She was stripped of her 1994 title. So basically, her husband got some guy, I think it was like her bodyguard, to take a baton and hit Nancy Kerrigan on the knee so she couldn't compete in the skating, but Nancy Kerrigan was able to still compete. But yeah, I believe Tanya Harding definitely knew what was going to happen. She tried to act like she knew, but she was scared of her husband because he was abusive, so she didn't warn Nancy or other people what her husband had planned. But I'm like, shoot, please. All of this happened because she was jealous. She was afraid that Nancy was going to beat her. Tiffany Haddish. So Tiffany has Sun in Sagittarius in the 11th, opposing Moon in Gemini in the 5th. So her father, Tishay Rita Haddish, was an Eritrean Jew. Her mother, Leola, was an African American small business owner from a Jehovah's Witness family. After Haddish's father left when she was 3 years old, her mother remarried and had Haddish two half sisters and two half brothers. So her having these half siblings through her mother is dealing with this opposition, as well as her father being from a foreign nation that's dealing with this opposition as well. In 1988, while her family was living in Colton, California, Haddish's mother, Leola, suffered severe brain damage in a car accident. It was believed to have caused Leola's schizophrenia. Haddish said her mother became quick-tempered, abusive, and violent. Haddish, then 9 years old and the oldest of five siblings, became the family's primary caregiver. It was around this time that Haddish became interested in humor. She said, "If I could make Leola laugh and turn her anger into some joy, I was less likely to get beat. Same thing in school. If I could make the kids laugh, they help me with my homework and protect me from other bullies." So the mom and her school experiences is represented by that Moon in Gemini. The Moon in Gemini is representing the mother with the car, her getting a car accident, but also the mother's mental state. And then opposing that Sun in Sagittarius, that prompted Tiffany to turn to humor. According to Haddish, Sagittarius rules humor. According to Haddish, her stepfather later told her he had tampered with the brakes on her mother's car, intending the wreck to kill Haddish, her siblings, and her mother so he could collect on their life insurance policies. However, the children chose to stay home that day, and the accident was not fatal for her mother. So, mom being at odds with a man, being at odds with her husband, Tiffany had a stepfather. Yeah, that's that opposition. So that's where it could get really ugly, like I was saying. Now, when Haddish was 13, she and her siblings were put into foster care and temporarily separated from one another. While there, she used comedy to cope with being with unfamiliar people. So her being put in foster homes is very much Sun in Sagittarius, opposing Moon in Gemini. Sagittarius does deal with foster care as well as adoption. That Moon deals with her being separated from the siblings because of the foster care. And also that Moon in Gemini deals with being in multiple homes. And also I'm adding in here questionable morals and ethics because some of her comic material has been questionable in terms of morals, ethics, principles. namely that skit she did with Aries Spears a couple of years ago that involves that whole child, I don't even want to say, I'll say chomo humor. John Benet Ramsey. So John Benet Ramsey, she was the little girl that was murdered. She was the one participating in the beauty pageants. She had Sun in Leo in the fourth, opposing Moon in Aquarius in the ninth. So this shows that father was the more loving parent, even if the love he showed was just performative. Mother was cold and detached. Also, you could look at this as John Benet Ramsey being surrounded by perverts, which makes a lot of sense because she was in that whole pageant world. They put makeup on her, had her wearing heels, hair done up like she a grown woman. Being objectified by the mother, represented by Moon in Aquarius, as a form of narcissistic supply. Father belonged to a network, perhaps, with this opposition. Sun in Leo is representing the father, and Leo also rules children. And the father was an executive. He was a leader, president of a company, and that's dealing with Sun in Leo as well. But this can also deal with he's part of a network involving children and trafficking and all that with the ninth house involved. So that's what I think happened. But that's for another day to go into depth with this story. Now, the case generated worldwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen, had entered John Benet into a series of child beauty pageants. So this is the mother basically having John Benet compete in those pageants, represented by this opposition. Again, mother objectifying John Benet Ramsey. And then lastly, we have the United Kingdom. So the United Kingdom has Sun in Capricorn in the fourth, opposing Moon in Cancer. So the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, commonly known as the United Kingdom, UK, or Britain, is a country in northwestern Europe off the coast of the continental mainland. It comprises England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The UK includes the island of Great Britain, the northeastern part of the island of Ireland, and most of the smaller islands within the British Isles. So all of these territories, nations that make up Great Britain, the United Kingdom, that's dealing with this opposition as well. And then also Brexit, where the UK left the European Union, that's represented by this opposition as well. So that concludes my reading on Sun opposition Moon. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Thank you, Justin, once again for sponsoring another video. I hope you found it enlightening and insightful. Stay tuned for more videos. And if you would like to purchase a reading, the link to my website is in the description section. If you would like to sponsor a video, the directions on how to do so are in the description section as well. Shout out to my patrons, my Diggable Planets channel members, my subscribers, clients, all of y'all. Happy holidays. Hope all is well.